All right, let's start this.
Oh, let's do it.
Okay, on 3, 2, 1. Hey, what's up, guys? English Dave here for the Nerdy Bunch, here to do a review of Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge. I'm here with my longtime co-host, but we haven't podcasted in a while together, Travis, the American Yank. What's up, Travis?
Can I get a revised introduction, like a WWE superstar that has kind of been retired but is coming back for the ring for a Raw or something like that? Just like things are happening, then boom, and then all of a sudden I'm. That's like, not my music, but we can work on that.
It's like after a long time away from the ring, coming back after he has been missed. The one, the only, the American Yank. You like that? Is that better? I'm not the best.
That was great. No, that got me pumped up. And I think a lot of people are now trying to remember who this guy was. And some of them will be like, I like this guy. I'm glad he's back.
For those of you who remember, Travis was my co-host in a bunch of trailers.
Amongst other ones.
Right? So many other ones. Yeah. Bunch of trailers needs to come back. We need to return to that one. I think it needs a return. But
yeah, I think you're right.
But today we are here to talk about the new Mortal Kombat animated movie. Don't get it twisted. Just because it's animated doesn't mean it's for kids. This is R-rated. For the grown kids.
It is. It really is, Dave. And I would like to just I'd like to quote from two people from what is this app you got me going on here? It is the one where we can review movies, Letterboxd, right?
Letterboxd.
I like this app. This is great.
It's really
good.
Right?
It's great. And so, right away, I want to shout out to Sezz, S-E-Z-Z-Z, who goes, Weil dem nichen Ukbachchen nicht dessa und Mortal Kombat animation film von Warner Bros. I couldn't agree more.
I mean, you couldn't sell it better than that. I feel, what's the point of carrying on with this review? That's it.
I mean, all in German.
Before we go into it, I'll go off with a synopsis. This is based on the classic game series by Ed Boon and John Tobias, where every generation the champions of Outworld and Earth Realm must fight to death in a brutal tournament that determines the fate of Earth. This particular story focuses on Hanzo Hasashi, aka fan favorite Scorpion, who loses his clan, family, and his life during an attack by a rival ninja clan. He's given a chance to compete in the tournament as a means to save his loved ones. I kind of like that about the story that, we focused on someone like Scorpion. There's been previous Mortal Kombat movies before, even animated movies. A lot of fans will say that the Mortal Kombat movie of the 90s is the quintessential video game movie. And in some arguments, you could be right, but I think a lot of recent movies have come out to kind of fill that gap. However, we haven't had a chance to kind of focus on a character like this. And I think for me, those are my favorite parts. That opening scene, we won't go into detail, and the introduction of Scorpion, his character, is done fantastically well. Absolutely loved it. But before we get into all of that, what were expectations going in, Travis? I'd like to give our listeners and viewers a kind of baseline. Did you play the game? Did you know what to expect from the movie? What was your expectations?
I did play the game. I was one of those early 90s kids that made sure that his parents did not know he was playing the game because of its brutality. Of course, I was the kid that, played it, had no idea how I just pulled off that move, mashed buttons, and that was Mortal Kombat. And I think that it really... coming from, you had to live in the time where that was such a big deal. Like now, kids that are literally 5 months old are like buying GTA and are cursing you out online. And you're like, dude, what are you doing? But when back in the 90s, when Mortal Kombat came out, that was a huge deal. So like, and that struck you or remained with you in such a way that, from the 1,000-foot view, everyone knows that Mortal Kombat is about those brutal moves. If you didn't know anything about it, you know that Mortal Kombat is baseline brutal. So finish finish him, right? Those iconic quotes from it too. So from that's kind of what I went into, right? That 1,000-foot view of just being expecting brutality, to use a perfect word, the brutality. And of course, probably I'm going to say the top 3 most iconic people in it are Raiden, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero. So
Yes,
obviously,
I'd agree.
showing Scorpion is a great character choice to
He's
engage people
almost
into
always
this.
like a villain, you know, in the games,
Always,
you
yeah,
know.
I always thought he
So,
was too.
and I found it interesting that you follow his character and you almost sympathize and understand where he's coming from. Yeah, and I thought that was a very interesting choice to make. Yeah, I came in with the same expectations just as you. I grew up as a kid in the '90s. This is a game, like you said, because of the violence, it had to be in your collection. You know, no other reason. And man, was there violence. You probably look back on it, and you think, oh, that looks terrible. But at the time, that was the most photorealistic, especially because of the style they used at the time. That kind of photorealistic, but faux photorealistic kind of look. No other game was doing that at the time. So it just made the violence that much more pronounced. I had seen trailers for this movie. I knew it was R-rated, but I don't think I was ready. Because, you listeners or viewers who haven't seen this movie, you can hear us saying it's R-rated, but man, you're not ready.
It really is, and I coupled with that expectation, it's kind of interesting, right? Because expectation was the violence, and then they give you the violence, and you're like, "Oh, this is violent. This is really violent." And they really, if you're gonna do it right. Like
Yes.
if you're gonna don't you can't hold back on this. There's been so many examples of movies that people hold back for a number of reasons. This one knew exactly what it wanted to be. If you knew nothing about it, you'd be like, I get what this is about now. And you might even be intrigued to go try to find out more about different characters, because this movie did show a lot of characters that some people will know just by looking at them, right? Raiden, people know him. I think his name's Goro.
Yeah, with
The
the
four, right? He's noticeable one. Liu Kang to an extent, Johnny. But reptiles in there, which some people might know, might not know. Like there's a few things that are, a few characters that are, if you're playing the game, you'll know. If you don't, you don't, and maybe that intrigues people to learn more. If I am that person and I am intrigued to learn more, if they come out with more of these different characters and continue to kind of blend stories together, yeah, I'm in. I'll watch them. Absolutely.
I agree with you. It does a good job of bringing in people who don't really know the franchise. But if you do know the franchise, there is a lot of Easter eggs in this. Like you said, certain background characters that may not even get named, but you'll see them and you're like, oh, I know that guy. I know that person and that creature. And even down to the fight animations and the finishes. They get the exact finishes you see in the games, and some of they do the finishes, by the way. Like, holy shit. It was a nitpick from the original movies, was that there were no finishes, and this does a great job. This is actually directed by a guy called Ethan Spalding. You may not know his name, but you know his work. He's done a lot of the recent DC animated movies, such as Justice League, Throne of Atlantis, Batman Assault on Arkham, and Son of Batman. But for me, what gets me excited is that he did a lot of episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So this is someone who knows what he's doing in animation, and not just animation.
Absolutely.
But I also think animation action. It's not that easy to do action well in animation, because everything has to be drawn, right? You can't. There's no mistakes or no happy accidents. And one thing I'll say about this is it's a double-edged sword. I wasn't a fan of the animation style, the look. It's kind of this weird, like their knuckles had the black things on it and weird and blocky.
Yeah.
But when the action kicked in, it worked so well. And I almost think that they kind of built the animation style for the action. It didn't quite work when it was like dialogue scenes, but during the action scenes, I was really engaged.
The action was really engaging. It was really intense. When they make it a little bit more intimate, the brutality of it, you feel it. I mean, you do. There's a couple times I was sitting there, be like, "Ouch! Oh, ouch!"
Yes.
and that is another testament to the art of it too. Is to show something on screen in live action is one thing. But to draw something and make you feel that pain that character is supposed to be depicting is really a big achievement, especially on a brutality of this level. But they did it nicely. Like, tell me if you picked this up. Did you feel a lot of Samurai Jack type of influence in here?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of Samurai Jack, you'll feel at home in some of the way the action is shot. Even the guy that did Samurai Jack, I forget his name. Gendy Taskovsky. I always mispronounce his name. He has a new show, or newish, came out a couple of years ago, called damn it, it's with the caveman.
You showed me a video too. Yes, you showed me that. It's supposed to be very brutal.
Primal. It's called Primal, and it's really good. And this seems similar to Primal only because of the R-rated levels of it. And it's I never thought of that until you just mentioned it, but yeah, it does feel of that Samurai Jack.
It has that fluid flow to it, and it's nice because I don't believe this is a spoiler at all. You're following about 4 different characters, main characters in this. You're following Miss Blade. You're following obviously Scorpion. You're following Johnny, and then Liu Kang's in there. Each have really cool fighting styles that if you played the game, you're going to be very you're going to pick up very well. And now, did you feel, Dave, that out of all the characters they could have picked, the ones that they did, minus Scorpion, were the proper ones to pick? For me, I kind of felt like, again, not knowing a lot of the backstory, maybe there was reason to pairing up Sonya with everyone else. I got the Liu Kang Raiden thing, but overall, some of me kind of felt like they just went like this and threw a dart at the board, and okay, Johnny's there.
I will say, in terms of the original lore, those characters are usually paired up together. It's in fact, I think it's exactly the same pairing that they used in the live action movie in the 90s. I think the issue really stems not from the fact that what you're saying, but I think your issue, and it's my issue as well, is it's almost there's 2 narratives happening at the same time. You have Scorpion's narrative, and then you have Raiden's narrative, and Raiden's narrative is bringing that team together. And and they try and put it together, but I don't think it gels well together. I think it's almost, this is where they try to have their cake and eat it too. And I wish we only focused on either just Scorpion or them, preferably Scorpion, because I think the first act of the movie focuses on Scorpion and his background, his narrative, his motivation. And that's one of the best aspects narratively in the film. That's when you really engage. What happens to him is really tragic. You understand his pain, and he's such a savage when he's angry, but you understand where that anger is coming from. But then halfway through, we start cutting to the other guys, and it takes away some of the dramatic stakes. And I almost wish we stayed with with Scorpion. And the other characters, their narrative was happening in the background, and you don't really get into it. And maybe the future movies or sequels then shifts the focus. And I think that's if I had a major nitpick about this movie, it's that. I think it needed to focus wholly on Scorpion, and it doesn't.
Yep. The cake and eat it too is nail on the head, is where they were juggling a lot of balls in the air, or just enough where they pulled it off, but you could have made, the whole thing could have gone different ways, right? It could have gone a couple different ways. And I felt like they picked the one that was going to be approachable enough for everyone, right? Like
the safe version, the safe one.
It's safe version, and this is actually just a movie fan's critique of not this movie particularly, but overall structural narrative. Is like, you could have gone, the narrative itself as a complete whole was lacking because you chose not to make it a very intimate project. You wanted to get a lot of those attractive aspects of it that make people familiar with Mortal Kombat, or recognizable portions of that, so they can feel like, okay, this is recognizable, this is familiar, but doing so, you had to sacrifice somewhere. To use a Lord of the Rings reference, it comes back to, like Bilbo said, he's like, he feels like he's butter scraped over too much bread. And that's what this kind of felt like a little bit, right? It's like the narrative being the butter was scraped thin. It worked. Again, I think this is like a B movie, really entertaining, high parts of that B, low parts of that B, but it was stretched. It was thin to cover enough where I think, personally, and this is just my opinion also, is that I don't know, I could be completely wrong. I don't honestly know if there's a majority fan base out there that is so uber obsessed and dedicated to the Mortal Kombat lore, like in reference Marvel fans, where if you get something wrong, right? This, I honestly don't know if there's enough out there besides an attractive game where people are going to be like, you can give me whatever and I'm fine. You gave me the familiar, and it came out to be a fine movie, but I'm not going to get pissed if you don't do this. Like, you can give me an intimate movie that is just this character in their own setting, maybe one more character antagonist, and you're good. This one had like 3 different plots, 3 different antagonists rolling back into the main narrative at the end, and then cut, and that was it. And I think that's kind of where all my points fell on this one to lower it down to where it is. But again, B, action, they got through it, right?
No, I agree, and I think because on their own, those narratives are actually interesting, and that's the problem. So they all get shortchanged because some of the characters, like Johnny Cage, is interesting and funny, and Sonya Blade, but you don't really get to the meat of them, and they just become almost caricatures, but just really interesting caricatures, but no more than that. They're just surface level. So if you had given them their own film, you could really service their story. And then on the Scorpion side, some elements of his motivation, I won't go into specifics, you almost skip past them. I'm like, we could have spent time there. In the games and in this story, one of his antagonists is Sub-Zero, and I think we don't get enough of Sub-Zero, and he's one of my favorite characters. And I wish if it focused on the Scorpion story, we could have really gotten the Scorpion and Sub-Zero dynamic, really develop that further. And they take some shortcuts, and I think some of the shortcuts are detrimental to the story. But like you said, it's not enough that makes me say, this is a terrible movie. It just stops it from being a really good movie. It's a good movie that just misses the mark of being really good. One thing that does make me happy is that, based on the title, Mortal Kombat Legends and then Scorpion's Revenge, it already made me start thinking this is the first of multiple movies. And then the way it ends on a sort of cliffhanger, telling you that there is more to the story. And in some ways, I wish this was an R-rated series. I would watch the heck out of it, like a streaming series on Netflix or Amazon, completely R-rated. I would watch it. And I think, because I think there is a lot of story there. And like you said, I think there's an opportunity to tell a fresh, different story. It's not so tied into old lore that any changes you get so mad, whatever. Play around with it. I hope there's more than one sequel.
Right.
I'd love to see multiple things come out of this.
Right.
Did you know they are actually developing a live action movie? James Wan, horror director who did Aquaman and some of the Annabelle movies, I think. He's not directing, but he's producing and writing a Mortal Kombat live action. And he said it will be R-rated and we will get fatalities. I just hope they're watching this movie. Because this movie has set a bar there for me in terms of the action and fatalities. You can't go back. So some of the things you see in this you see brains.
You see some gnarly stuff. And actually their combat, it kind of felt like, from a broad view of it, is like the combat itself was, I kind of think of it now as kind of like music, right? Is like you have the flow of the combat, and then the fatalities come in as those beat drops, right? And you're like, okay, I'm here, boom, and then I'm here, boom, and then those keep you re-engaged with it, because if that didn't happen, and number one, it's a total like fan card. We all want to. That's why we're watching it. We want to see these awesome fatalities and whatnot. But it does help take what could be, if you were, I think the first scene, let's call it like 7 minutes or something like that. A 7-minute fight is a long time, right? But if you break them out with these the graphic fatality portions or the bones breaking, everything like that, it does give it a nice rhythm, which I think they nailed the head on on a large part of the combat, and it followed a lot of the tropes. Like the Easter eggs were good in this because the tropes of it are all there, right? Like even if you just take the game, right? You're put up against someone in some random area. Well, no spoiler here, but when the tournament starts, you've got different stages, like as if it's their own little, their own little level.
And I think again, I think overall our favorite parts were the action scenes. I think the action is done enough that on its own is very entertaining, because I think two of the things I liked about the action scenes, one, they took specific. You could tell they took care to make sure each fighter would fight as they did in the game, in terms of their action style, their fighting style. They didn't have them just fight martial arts, general martial arts moves. You could see, that's how Scorpion fought. That's how Sonya Blade fought. You could see the moves they were doing, and you could tell these are creators who did their research. And also in terms of the fatalities and some of the X-ray special moves, when it started happening, I started thinking, is this going to get old? Are they going to overdo this? And it didn't. They had a great balance of not overdoing it. It wasn't like every 2 seconds. We get it a lot, but they get right to the tip where it doesn't get too much. Where you're like, okay, it's another one. Here's another one. Because I think other creators would have crossed that line and they did a good job of holding themselves back as much as they let everything go at the same time.
Yes, they used those to actually highlight something about the character. So I think about, Goro is a huge being, right? And so to expose how strong he is, you see bones breaking in, just kind of a move that he does, bones breaking. You can be like, wow, this guy is super strong. And same with some of the Scorpion things, the precision, he's got ninja-like precision, his savagery, right? Like, it's all those things that can, Sonya Blade's finishing move that's in the game in there too. And just like it shows, I think they used it properly to depict precision, strength, just some type of critique on their fighting style that was enhanced by them. And I think that's why it remained fresh every time it happened.
Okay. Yeah, no, I completely agree. All right, Travis, overall final thoughts on this movie. Do you recommend people check it out? It's out now on digital, and I think it comes out next week on Blu-ray DVD. Do you recommend this to fans?
I absolutely recommend it to people. It is just a good watch. It runs, I think, about an hour 30-ish, somewhere around there, I believe. It's not going to take up your whole day. And it definitely provides fan service. It's engaging. So yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that I recommend this to anyone who is intrigued by Mortal Kombat or just wants to see something action, gore,
fun.
Gore porn. It's awesome, yeah.
I'm actually going to watch it again this weekend because I want my wife to watch it, but I'm not going to tell her anything. I'm just going to, you want to watch this cartoon with me? I'm not going to tell her the level of violence. No.
The cartoon. You want to watch a cartoon?
Let's take it easy. Let's watch a cartoon. Well, thank you, Travis, as always. I hope this is the first of many reviews. We're stuck at home. People want our opinions on things to watch. So I think we should do more of these ad fun during this. Thank you guys for listening. If any of you guys have seen this movie or when you get a chance to see this movie, shoot us a message. We're on social media at The Nerdy Bunch. We like to read and see your opinions on movies. Once again, thank you, Travis.
Thank you, everybody. And to all you nerdies out there, stay safe, stay home, and
stay home.
Listen to more give us recommendations. Yeah, listen to our podcast, give us recommendations, ask questions, do what we say, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yes. My name is English Dave. And as always, Travis.
American Yank right here. Keep it nerdy, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Peace.